What? What does that even mean?
Nah, I ain't doing it. Not doing it. Not doing it. Not doing it. I'm not gonna do it. Okay, I will. Never mind.
Necesito que me expliques porque no lo entiendo. Necesito que me des más información porque no estoy entendiendo nada de lo que me estás diciendo, ¿ok? Gracias.
Good morning, you came to church! I'm proud of you. We actually had like 200 people that showed up in the middle of the snowstorm last night, which was awesome. Like I couldn't believe that they actually like made it all in. And so the fact that you're here in church today, I'm impressed with that. We're starting this series, that one time, Jesus said that one thing, and that reminded me of college. It was 1992. I was going to school in upstate New York, and I like to hike in the woods and stuff. Anybody else like to hike? Like that was like a thing for me back in the day. Like now I'd rather just fish. I'm not going to walk any place unless I have my fishing pole with me. But back in the day, I loved to hike, and so I didn't have a car in '92, and I was living in upstate New York, and so we were like I go hiking in the Adirondack Mountains and stuff, and I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I would like ask people, hey, you want to go hiking with me? You got a car? How about we go hiking? And the guy was like, people were like, nah, maybe. Well, eventually, there's this one afternoon, I found these two girls with a car on campus, and I'm like, hey, you want to go hiking with me? And they were like, yeah, and they were super gullible. It was awesome. So like they were like, yeah. And so like I went hiking with these two girls, and we're kind of walking around. What I didn't tell them in advance is I'd been to this place before, because this was kind of like just for fun. And I kind of like I knew that up ahead there was this place where you go cliff diving. You could there's like 25 foot or so, and you jump off the cliff and you hit the water. But the way this works, and this is so awesome, like the cliff bowed out like this, like a C, like a backward C. And you stand here, and if you ran really, really fast, you could miss the rocks and then hit the water, because it bowed way out. But the other thing about this cliff diving thing was it was a ravine, and there was a big rock wall going this way, so you couldn't even see the water. So when you jump, you don't see water at all. You don't even know there's water at the bottom of the ravine. And I did not tell this to these girls. So we came walking down this trail. This is a good day. This is such a good day. We were like walking along the trail. We come around the bend. I see the cliff. They see the cliff. And I'm like, you know what? I can't handle it anymore. My school grades are bad. I can't handle what's going on. I can't take it any longer. Grab my wallet, throw it in my pocket, and I just jump off the cliff. I just launched myself off this cliff. Like, I hit the water like 25 foot down or whatever. Like, I come up and the water's like ice mountain cold. Oh, and I'm like freezing. I can hear them when I come up. They're like, oh my gosh, he killed himself. He just killed himself. They're just flipping out. They're screaming like crazy. I can hear them crying. And I'm like, and I sneak back around and I climb back up the hill. I come around the corner and they're just, they are wailing. And I'm like, hi girls. And then it wasn't like they could even process what was going on at this point. It was so stunning. It was like 1, 2, 3, oh, he's alive. Like it literally was like a 3 or 4 second pause, and then all of a sudden they realized, oh my gosh, he's alive. And I'm like, hi, I'm cool. Like, you guys got my wallet? And I went over and I picked my wallet back up. And I'm like, hey, it's super cold because that water down there is super cold. Can we go back to the car? I got a towel in the back. And they were like, no. And they made me stand outside the car and shiver for like 20 minutes because they were so ticked off at me for having freaked them out so bad. It was like, we think about like great moments where you just like stun somebody else. That's like one of my very favorites. That's like an epic moment in my life that like someday I'm gonna brag to Jesus about. Jesus, that was like the best thing, like, because I just stunned him. Like, it was great. And that's kind of the concept of this series. The series is about the fact that Jesus would constantly stun his audiences. Like, he was kind of, in one sense, kind of a shock jock. Like, he would say stuff, and like he would just do stuff, and then people would be like, whoa, I can't believe he just did that. I can't believe he just said that. What, and they're like talking, like, and literally when he would say things, like they would it would be so stunning, they would like process 1, 2, 3, like, is that even, what? And they're like, look, is it okay to even say what he just said? It would piss people off. It would anger people. Like, for some people, like, Jesus was a really nice guy. Like, if he was like Mr. Rogers, why would they kill him? Like, he said some stuff that scared the crap out of people. He upended systems. When he came into a room and began to talk, like, it like made everybody like a little bit like pay attention, but also stunned, and they had to process everything he was saying. In fact, I would guess sometimes even when you read it, you kind of read it and you're like, I have no idea what the crap he just said. Who's ever felt like that reading the Bible? Yeah, there are moments where he just like, boom, he'll just say something like, what does that even mean? And so we thought, what if we took the next 3 weeks and we just talked about some of the stuff that like was the most stunning Satan sentences of Jesus, like the ones that really would have like set people back a little bit. And the one we're gonna talk about today is the one with the camel. So our conversation today is the one about the camel. Look at the person next to you and say, you like camels. In fact, I know you are in love with camels. And we'll get to that in just a minute. For real, like you are more in love with camels than you know. Almost everybody is in love with their camel. We'll kind of see how this, but before we like talk about the camel, we have to talk about the story before the camel. So like we need to talk about the story before the camel, here's the story before the camel. So like Jesus is preaching, he's like, hey, it's kind of like what I'm doing now. He's like talking and like people are listening and it's kind of going on and he's speaking and then all of a sudden this guy's like, hey, I have a question. And the guy's like, or Jesus is like, cool, what's your question? He goes, can I follow you? Can I follow you? And he's like, absolutely, why don't you just keep the 10 Commandments? Like just follow the 10 Commandments. Like just like follow, like, it's like, cool, I kept the 10 Commandments. Like I did that. Like I've kept all the 10 Commandments. He's like, awesome, great, good for you. And then he says something like, it's really trippy. In the book of Mark, the scriptures say, he looked at him with love. And then he says, so go sell everything you have and come follow me. Go sell it all and give it away and come follow me. He doesn't do this to be mean to him. Just give it all up and then you can follow me. And the guy like processes. And then the scripture says he went away sad. Like ever like you tell your kid, hey, go clean your room and they go, who's ever done that? Yeah, like you do that to your kid and like immediately, and he just kind of wanders off. Well, this is what the guy does. The guy like, here's the thing. Oh, as long as I give him my stuff, I have too much stuff. I can't possibly give it and he just wanders away. And here is where the mic drop happens. When this story ends, Jesus turns back to the rest of the crowd who are still sitting there. Do you know this is the only moment that somebody rejects following Jesus in the scriptures? Like when he says, hey, do you want me to be my disciple? They all say yes, except this one time. This guy's like, no, I can't possibly do this. In the rest of the occasions when he says, do you want to follow me? They all say yes and they just go. This one says, heck no, I'm out. He misses his opportunity. Come on, say missed opportunity. And so this guy misses his opportunity to see Jesus walk on water. He misses his opportunity to see Jesus take 5 loaves and 2 fishes and feed 5,000. He misses his opportunity to see Jesus say, hey, peace be still, and the storm is calmed. He misses his opportunity to see the resurrected Christ. He misses his opportunity to be in relationship with God forever. He misses out on so much simply because he was unwilling to do what Jesus asked. And then what's fascinating is, after Christ has been rejected, he turns back to the crowd, and he just, boom, he just freaking drops the mic. In fact, this is what he says next. When Jesus saw this, he said, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. In fact, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, there's the camel, than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. In other words, if you've got bank, if you're making money, like the likelihood is you're never gonna get to heaven, you're hosed. And some of you are like, whoo, good thing I'm not rich. Now, I hate to break it to you. You can look this up if you want to, like you can use your phone, globalrichlist.com. Globalrichlist.com. It will let you put in the income that you make, and it will tell you the exact number of person you are in the world in terms of wealth, of all 8 billion of us. In fact, if you put in $12,000 a year, you are in the top 15% of the world's wealthy. If you make $1,000 a month, you're in the top 15% of the wealthiest people of 8 billion, which means you're really freaking rich. In fact, you're really hosed, man. Look at the person next to you and say, you're hosed. You're hosed because Jesus just said, rich people are screwed. They're not getting into heaven. That's a mic drop of epic. Imagine you're sitting there like, and Jesus is like, hey, if you're wealthy, you're not, like, if we'll just be clear about it, if you have a job, you're not going to heaven. That's basically what the scenario would be. Because almost everybody makes at least $12K a year in the US. Wow. 95% of people make more than that in the US. Wow. So everyone with an income is going to hell. All of y'all are screwed. That's kind of the scenario he's preaching. And I got to thinking, like, what does this passage, what could it mean? Because if you think about it, why because I have a job do I go to hell? Like, why because I have income? Why would he say something was he just pissed off at the guy for walking away? Why would he say this kind of thing? And people have been trying to figure it out for years, honestly. Like, people have all kinds of, like, what does he mean by this, and how does this possibly work? And I did a ton of research on it, and I realized, here's what he's saying. Like, I'll give you 3 possible scenarios. 1, you can go to heaven if you can get a camel to go through a needle. So if you can get a Beanie Baby to somehow manage to shove it, if you can just shove a camel through a needle, you get into heaven. That's one possible answer. Like, he just said, take the camel, shove it through the needle, or maybe like if you get it in reverse, like you take the needle and you shove it through the camel. Can you imagine you like get to heaven, you're standing at the gates of heaven, you're like, well, I shoved the needle through the camel. Dude, you killed a camel. That's not what I meant. So I don't think that's what he was at. I don't think he literally was like, hey, if you can get a camel through a needle, you get to go to heaven. That would be like the weirdest way to get to heaven ever. Like, you could like blend it up. I was thinking you could blend it up and pour it through. For real, like, you can just blend, like, just grind up the camel, like, it's possible. Okay, so that's one scenario. Okay, what could this possibly mean? So, like, there's a secondary scenario. Like I said, I did a ton of research on this, and I found out something. The disciples were smokers. They all smoked Camels. For real, like, they just all smoked Camels. Some of them smoked Camel Light, was even easier. As long as you get a camel to go through the needle, you're in. So this is another scenario. It's like you get the camel to go through the needle. Man, you're into heaven, man. As long as you're smoking the right cigarette, Marlboro Man is screwed. I doubt that's what he means by this passage. Would you agree? Okay, so what is the other possibility for what he means here? And there's really only one other scenario. See, in Israel, the cities were surrounded by big giant walls. These walls had gates. So like Jerusalem has a bunch of different entrances with a bunch of different gates. And imagine it's the end of the day and you're a merchant, you're out, you got a job, and your camels are all kind of coming in for the evening, and you kind of come up to the city gate, and the gates are closed because at night they got to shut the gates so the bad guys don't get in. And you're like, hey, I live in town. You got to let me in. Well, there was a secondary entrance you could go to and get let in. It was called the eye of the needle. In fact, let me show you a picture. Like, this is a city gate. This is another city gate. See, the big doors, man, they get closed at night. But the smaller door, like, you could like go up to the entrance, knock on the door, and be like, hey, I live in town. Like, I live here. Can you let me in? And notice they would even put like a step on the bottom of it, so the door wouldn't, like, it would, like, you'd be a little off kilter, kind of coming through the door, getting in, because the guard on the other side is standing there with a sword. And if he don't recognize you or your passport don't match up, boom, he's taking you out on the spot. And so what he's saying with this passage is basically, if you could get your camel to kneel down, if you could get the possessions off the camel, if you can get the camel to kind of get down on its knees and awkwardly make it through this gate, you can walk into the kingdom. You can walk into the place where relationship with God is found. You can walk into something better. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's pretty simple. Our camel is our money and our possessions. He just told the guy a second ago, hey, have your possessions kneel to me, go sell them all and give it away, and you can walk into the kingdom. And he's like, heck to the no, I'm not doing that. And he bails. What he's saying is this, that we are called as people who follow Christ to cause everything that we own to kneel before God. And you could say money, possessions. Oh, you could talk about relationships in here for a second. You could say like your marriage is required to kneel in order to walk into the best that God has for your marriage. That your addiction needs to kneel in order for you to walk into the best life that you could ever have. Your sex life needs to kneel in order for you to walk into the best sex life that God has for you. That all things have to kneel in order to walk into something better. Does that make sense? Basically what Jesus is saying is this. You can put that on the screen for me. Our money can block us from walking into a real relationship with Christ. Our money can block us from walking. Now, to be honest and to be fair, do you get to heaven because you give away your money, yes or no? No, how do you get to heaven? How do you get to heaven? Trust in Christ. So when he looks at this guy and says, give it all away, you can go, and follow me, he's not saying if you don't give it away, you can't go to heaven. What's he meaning? He's like, if you aren't willing to offer all that you have, you don't really want to be in relationship with me. It is evidence you really want. I'm thinking about it like this. Imagine you're at a wedding, and the groom is standing there. He's holding the girl's hand. They're looking deep in each other's eyes, and he says, you know how, baby, I love you for better, for worse, and richer, for poorer, but you're never going to drive my car. Would that make any sense at all? No, it's false relationship. It's like, I'm going to hold something back from you, but we're still going to call it love. In the same way, Jesus is saying, in order for you to say, I love you, in order for you to say, I follow you, in order for you to say, I want to be in relationship with you consistently, we have to be willing to say anything is on its knees in order to be with Christ. Relationships on the knees. Jesus, you want them? Here they go. Money on the knees. Here you go. Like you can have whatever it is you want. I bow all things to you. If you ask for it, it's yours. The wallet's yours. The relationship is yours. The addiction is yours. Come on, say all things. Basically, he doesn't give you an option for like being wishy-washy with this. You can't be like, well, I'm sort of in the king. I'm like half in and half out. Like I got a foot both places. That's called BS Christianity. He basically like doesn't give you an option for living in the middle. It's either follow me or not. Bow all things to me or not. And the first guy, the rich guy, goes, wow, I get the fact that it's either in or out. I'm out. And he bails. And you know, Jesus isn't like, oh no, what will I do? My life is over. He bailed on me. He's like, well, peace out. There's no like chasing him down like, oh, please follow me. I'll change all the deal. Like, we'll make a new deal just for you. He's like, no, here's the deal. What you want, you in or out? And he's out. The option is, will you what's the thing that you keep holding on to that you refuse to allow to kneel before Christ? In fact, this is how the passage goes next because it's awesome. This is the reaction to this mic drop. Like, the reaction is amazing. Luke chapter 18:26 is this. Those who heard this were like, well, who in the world can be saved? Because somebody always has something that's not kneeling. Like somebody always has something that's like they want to hold on to. Like everybody's got something. Who can be saved? And he replied, what is impossible for people is possible. What's those two words? Here's what I'm telling you. If the Spirit of God is in you, if you are walking in relationship with Christ, the evidence is things kneel. They just do. Like you're like, you want my money? Great, there it is. You want my time? Oh, there it is. Oh, you want this relationship? This isn't the relationship you have for me? Great. I'm going to end this relationship with the girl I'm dating or the boy I'm dating simply because you asked me to. All things are going to kneel. When the Spirit of God lives in you, you just want to obey him. So now you got to think for a second whether or not you want to. Because if you are with God, immediately you want to kneel all things to him. If immediately you're like, I'm not sure, man. Heck to the no. I think I'm going to go. Like I would tell you, maybe the Spirit of God doesn't reside in you and you're not actually a follower of Christ. It is the evidence you are with God. In fact, the way I would say it is this. Jesus says, you can pass this test. Look at the person next to you and say, you can pass this test. Sometimes money is a test. Will I trust God with my money or do what I want? Sometimes the relationship is the test, and God's like, "Hey, this isn't the right relationship. I got something better for you." And the test isn't money; it's the relationship. And are you willing to give it up in order to walk with Christ. Sometimes the test is I really want to hold on to this drinking thing. I really want to hold on to my partying deal. Like, do you really have this thing that you want to hold on to? He's like, I want you to give it up. I want you to give this part of your life up to follow me. Some of you, it's like a dream. Like, God, I really want to do this. And God's like, no, I really want you to go that way. You're like, but I really want to do this. And he's like, nope, this is where we're going. And if your heart is open to Christ and the Spirit of God dwells in you, you just want to run to Christ, not the thing that you want. And you have to analyze your own heart. Which is your life? Who runs you? Who are you walking with? Now, as soon as Jesus says, what is impossible for people is possible with God, then Peter wants to throw in his 2 cents. Like, he's at this little church meeting too, and so Peter's like, hey, I have a statement. Can you call on me, teacher? And he's like, cool, Peter, go ahead. And Peter says this, hey, well, we left our homes to follow you. Well, we did it. We left everything. And let's just be straight up for a second about Peter. Peter was not poor. Peter was a middle-class businessman in Israel. He had a house and a wife. He had a business on the Sea of Galilee. He had a wooden boat in a desert culture, which must have cost him a frickin' fortune. He had employees working with him. And he's out on the boat one day, and a random dude he doesn't even know walks past and says, hey, follow me, and I'll make you a fisher of men. And Peter gave it all up. He looks at his dad and is like, I gotta go, Dad, sorry. His 2 brothers are like, I'm in too, and they bail too, and they leave the business behind. I've been to the house that is considered Peter's house in Capernaum. I've been to the foundations are still there on that spot. Had a decent home, had a decent boat, was making pretty decent money, and he just gave it all up. Why? Because he wanted to be with Jesus. See, Luke, the writer of this passage, is contrasting the first guy who's like, heck to the no, I'm not giving it up, in relationship to Peter, who was like, I'll give whatever you want. I just want to be where you are. I want to walk with you, Christ. If that's what you need, and think about the difference between the two. First guy walks away sad, never experiences a miracle, lives average. Last you ever hear of him, walked away and lived an average, boring, nothing life. Peter, on the other hand, he's there when Jesus is walking on water. He goes, can I walk on water too? All of a sudden, Peter's walking on water. Like, he's at the place where Jesus feeds the 5,000. He's on the top of the mountain with Jesus when he shows himself off in his glory at the transfiguration. He meets Christ after the resurrection. He gets to experience miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. The other guy misses everything. Missed opportunities. Versus experiencing all that God has for them. Come on, I want you to understand that God's got a kingdom for you. He's got a city with walls and a beautiful place. And he's like, all I'm asking is that you're all in. Not that you're like living in the middle here, but you're literally like, whatever you want, it's yours. You want cash? There it is. Like, if you want my money, there, use it for the kingdom. The kingdom matters more. Oh, you want my time? Here's my time. I'll use my time for you. You want a better relationship for me? I'll break this one off to go to something better. But this doesn't earn you salvation. What this does for you is it gives you the best life you could have ever had because you're with Christ in all things. Does this make sense? Which literally leads me to this application. Like, there's a couple applications. Here's the first one. Which person are you going to be? The guy that bails or Peter? Today, when you walk out those doors, think of them like the eye of the needle. And some of you will walk out that gate and be like, nah, I'm not trusting God with all things. There's no way I'm trusting God with all things. And you're going to walk out into the world and you're going to miss your opportunity to have experienced the extraordinary with God. And what could have been awesome and what could have been beautiful, you're going to miss it because you're just not willing to kneel all things to him. Others of you are like, hey, like Pete, he can have whatever he wants. Whatever he asks, I want you to understand it's the same question I have. I've been faced with the question, are you gonna bail on, like back when I was dating? Am I gonna bail on this girl because it's not the one God has for me and trust God with somebody better? Or what am I gonna do? And he would say, this isn't the right person. Are you gonna walk away? Or are you gonna walk with her? It's either her or me. Well, I'd really be what Jesus is. I can remember that, like this one relationship I was in, I actually gently shut the door in this girl's face. And she was crying. And I was like, I can't be with you any longer. And I remember the door closing, and I can remember hearing her crying behind the door, and I was out. I just wanted to be where Jesus was. I was gonna walk with Christ no matter what. I remember the moment when we were talking about faith and God was like, hey, I want you to honor me with your wallet. And like, what does that mean? Like, just honor me with 10%. Like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, if you want to walk with me or not? Of course I do. There you go. The tension that you go through is the same tension that I go through, the same tension that Peter goes through, that this rich man goes through. And each of you have to decide which person are you going to be, who are you going to walk with. You get to choose. Basically, you could say this: our money or our relationships, for some of you it's not money, or our career, or our dreams, or our boyfriends, or our future, or our plans, or our cash, or our bank accounts, all things. All things must bow to Jesus in order to experience all that Jesus has for us. Or otherwise you will miss out. It will be a missed opportunity. But it could be something more, depending on what you choose to do with all that you have. Gee, I told you, we love our camels. I don't want my camel to bow. I want my camel more than I want Jesus. And this is why we don't experience all that God has for us. There's a couple people we asked, just like, we're going to use it in relationship to money, because we can think about it in whatever situation you want to think about it. But just for a second, we said to a couple people, like, why do you decide to honor God with your resources? And this is what they said. Take a look.
I've been going to the crossing here for 11 plus years now. I call this place my church home. And I tithe here because it is my church home. I make sacrifices for my wife, my children, my families when I needed to, and now I make sacrifices for my church. I believe in the mission that we're doing here, and I believe in Pastor Eric and Pastor Kelly, and I just believe in this church, and that's why I tithe.
We've been coming to the Crossing Church for close to 9 years now, and we've continued to always give because we believe wholeheartedly in what the church is doing. We tithe because, not because we have to, is because we get to. We know that it helps put out flyers, it helps to pay the staff, it just helps turn the electric on, keep the electric on, keep the heat on, keep the AC on. So we know that's all part of running a church, and that's why we give to the Crossing.
Brenda and I give at the Crossing to see life change. We've seen it with our resources being just tithing, being faithful to God and what He's called us to do, but also not me necessarily taking a knee with somebody, but knowing that my resources help bring other people to Jesus. I give to the Crossing Church to see life change in other people, to see other people come to Jesus.
The middle one, there was a phrase that one of the guys says, I give not because I have to, but because I get to. When we give up a relationship to honor God, we do so because we get to be with Jesus, not because we have to. When we give up our dreams and own the dreams that God has for us, it's because we get to, not because we have to. We get to be where Jesus is. We'd rather be with Christ than on our own. When it comes to giving, we want to honor God with our giving, not because we have to, but because we get to. We just want to be where Jesus is, where miracles are, where life change can happen. We get to follow Christ. We don't have to, we get to. And some of you are like, I don't feel that way at all. Then I would wonder if the Spirit of God is in you. Because the thing earlier we said, with God, all things are possible. When God is with you, you want to follow him. It's like there's something in your heart that says, I just have to be where Jesus is. It's wired in you because the Spirit of God is so alive in you. Now some of you are like, well, what do I get out of that? Like why, so I give up all these things. Like Peter gave up everything. What did he get? Remember, Peter's question was, so we left our homes to follow you. Or that was his statement. Well, Jesus looks back at him and has a promise. This promise isn't just for Peter, it's for you too. Here's what he says. Yes, you did give up your home for me. And I assure you that everyone who has given up house, wife, or brothers, or parents, or children, for the sake of the kingdom of God, will be repaid many times over in this life, and will have eternal life in the world to come. Now, what Jesus says back feels like even harsher than his earlier statement. It sounds like he's saying, bail on your wife and kids, doesn't it? That's not what he's saying. He's not saying bail on them. He's saying be open-handed with them. God, you know that they're your kids and not my kids, so I'm open-handed. You can take care of them better than I can, so I trust them with you. This relationship with my spouse, like I can't fix this. Like, don't put that on the screen yet, I'm not there. She's running ahead of me. This relationship that I have with my spouse, I can't make it better, but you can, so I'm open-handed with my relationship with my spouse. With my dating relationships, here it is. Here's the guy I'm dating, here's the girl I'm dating. Does this please you, or do I need to walk away from this? I'm open-handed with all things. Whatever you want, I just want your will. And he says, if you live this way, you'll always be repaid many times over. That he promises you're going to walk into something better. Come on, say better. Well, I like to say it this way, like the blessed life is available for you if you're open-handed with all things. But if you are unwilling to be open-handed with all, you miss out on so many great things that he has for you. This is the way I would summarize it. Now you can put that on the screen for me. Jesus says, be open-handed with all things, money, possessions, relationships, and you'll be repaid many times over. And then I put this little bullet point thing underneath it, and it's really important that you catch. Money comes and goes, but Jesus is faithful. Sometimes your checkbook is full, sometimes your checkbook is empty. It's Christ who is our constant. Therefore, I honor him with my money. Possessions, they come and go. Houses come and go. Cars come and go. But Jesus is faithful. He's with me when I got no car. He's with me when I got 5 cars. He's with me in all things. People come and go, but Jesus is my constant. This week, 2 days, I was at hospice. I was helping a wife and a son say goodbye. Young guy. He's laying in the bed, taking his last few breaths. That's the scariest thing in the world to think about. Like, I want to be with her always. I don't want to be in that bed. I don't want her in that bed. I don't want to be saying goodbye to her. And I had just studied this passage before we went to hospice. And all of a sudden I realized what the constant is when we have to say goodbye to the ones we love. It's Christ who gets us through. It's Christ who gets us through. He's the one that is the constant, so that when she's laying in the bed and I'm saying goodbye to her, I have somebody who is always faithful because she can no longer be faithful. So I honor him with my relationships. His faithfulness is better than any human faithfulness. His provision is better than any provision that I could ever try to accomplish for myself. So I honor him with my wallet. I honor him with my time. I honor him with all things because he is our only constant. Come on, say, Jesus is my constant. He's the only one that's going to be with you in all things. Therefore, he gets all things. And for the first time ever, for real ever, I realized that if she goes, I'm going to be okay. Because he's my constant. If I go, she's going to be okay. Because Jesus is going to take better care of her than I could have ever taken care of her. So I just want to honor God with all things because he's my faithful source of everything. This is why we get on our knees with all things, because nobody is always going to be there except Christ. So application 2.0. Will you make all things, even money, time, relationships, bow to Christ, or will you walk away? The first guy walks. Like, you know what? I'm not doing it. And he misses out. Let's think about death for a second. I don't know what happened to that guy on his deathbed. I don't know where he was at or what was going on. I know where Peter was. He was allowing himself to be crucified upside down and at peace over the whole thing. Because he was with Jesus. The confidence to even face death because he'd chosen rightly. Will you cause all things to bow to Christ? Or will you walk away? Open-handed or closed-handed with all that you have? Now, I got to wrap it up, but I thought we'd wrap it up with a visual. The illustration I'm about ready to do, it will basically explain what we just talked about in visual form. For some of you that are visual, this will help you. So I'm going to use Nick and Luke. So two of you guys, can you come up here? Pull your sleeves up, Nick. Okay, stand right in front of us, in front of this. Give it up for these guys. Okay, stand right in front of these baskets. Just stand right in front of it. You got it. You'll be good. No, stand in front of it, right there. Okay, so all things that we have are given to us by God, yes or no? So when that rich guy walked away, was everything he has from God, yes or no? And he still refused to bow. So let's just think about all things for a second. Like, all things have been given to you by God, so I'm going to sneak behind you right here. So this, hold your hands out. Just cup your hands out. Okay. Flour has been given to you by God. There you go. We'll just give you some flour. Sugar has been given to you by God. So there you go. Chocolate chips have been given to you by God. This represents relationships, time, money, career. Like, think about all the things that God gives you. Oh, you need a little bit of butter to make this thing work. So there you go. A little bit of butter. And then, for good measure, you need an egg. Now, there are two people in this story. One, his only answer to Jesus was, mine. I'm keeping it for myself. We'll let that be represented by Luke. There you go. Just mine. Like, just hang on to all that you got. Never let it go, because I have stuff and I just can't let it go. Now, on the other hand, Peter was like, oh, if Jesus wants something, he can have it. He can have all things. Like, I want to be where God is. Seriously, why don't you just give me that? There you go. There you go. But there was a promise Jesus made. If you are willing to give up all things, you know what? You'll be repaid many times over. In saying no to God in anything, what you end up with is a mess. In saying yes to God in all things, no matter what it is, the relationships, the time, the money, the career, the dreams, when all things are offered over to him, the result is eventually he makes you a nice cookie. And when you walk out today, you can walk out with a mess or you can walk out with a cookie. It's really your choice. Now, I felt bad for Luke, so we'll take this illustration a little further. you get to walk out with that. Go ahead, you can go. Yeah. Give it up for Luke. Yeah, go ahead. Some of you in the same way today will walk out with your mess and you will blame God. He did not help you in it, but you weren't willing to give it to him. Others of you will walk out and say, God, whatever you ask, I'm just all in. And I don't know what the cookie is gonna be. I can't guarantee you what's gonna happen. I just know it's better to be with Jesus than apart from him. I know it's better to be in the kingdom, walking with him in all things, than kind of like in the middle ground, kind of playing around with stuff, and you got a mess and a cookie. So just trust him with everything. And so see how he might bless you. All right, Nick, you can have your cookie. Give it up for Nick. So now I gotta be done. Here's kind of my final sentence. This is your choice. You can make all things in your life bow, including money, or not. What will you do? You get to choose. Let me pray for you. Can you close your eyes and bow your head? I just want you to think about your life for just a minute. How many of you would say that there's something you have been holding on to and you just need to yield it to Christ this morning? Like there's something that like you just keep fighting God on it and you keep saying no, and he's like, come on, just trust me, just follow me. Like how many, just by raise of hands, how many say there's something I've been holding on to, I need to let God have it? Can I see, put your hands up? So many of us. All right, so today, we're gonna offer this prayer. If this is you, I just want you to pray it out. Just say, Jesus Christ, today I give all things to you. Whatever you ask for is yours. I know your way is better. I know your plans are better. So I give my entire mess to you. I hold on to nothing. I release it all and trust everything to your care. Take me to greater things like you've promised. Today I trust you, Jesus. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. That was good. So this week was the one about the camel, or the one with the camel. Next week is the one with the trick question. And we'll see where that one goes. Thanks.